A macro is nothing more than just a bunch of recorded steps. Yes, Excel actually has a recorder and it can record everything that you do within Excel, and then once you're done you can save it into what they call a macro. Now the purpose of a macro is that if you have something that's repetitive, you have to do over and over and over again the same thing, why not go ahead and just do it once, and while you're doing it record all the steps that you do, and then again save it into a macro, so later on if you need to repeat those steps just run the macro. And that macro can be run in many ways. You can actually assign the macro or your recording to a button. Just click on the button and it can be up here in the quick access toolbar. Or go ahead and use a shortcut key that we can assign to our macro or again our recording. From here on out I'll refer to our recordings as a macro since that's what Excel is referring to anyways. So for example, I have all these worksheets for Arizona, California, New York, Utah, all these cells. And what I want to do is I want to be able to clean up the formatting on one and apply it to all the rest, without having to go into each one individually and do the same thing. For example, I want to be able to record the steps of me clicking in cell A1, changing the color to blue, and then also the size to 24, and then how about the range here to bold, and then this range down here from a general number format to currency. Now instead of doing that on each worksheet, all I have to do is pick one worksheet, like let's say California, go ahead, turn on the recording, and then start doing my steps, coming up here into cell A1, blue, size 24, things like that. Stop the recording, save it, and then come back on any other worksheet, run it, and then it will play back those steps. When it plays it back, it'll say, I recall in the recording you clicked in cell A1, so I'll go there. I'll go ahead and change the size to 24, the color blue, and so forth. Now, there's three ways you can record a macro. First of all, down in the window frame at the bottom lower left-hand corner, see that little button there? When I click on that, it'll open up a window and say, okay, before I start recording a macro, what name do you want to give me? That's one way. The second way is coming up here, clicking on the View tab, going to the Macros group, clicking on the drop-down arrow, and there's the second way, recording a macro. The third way is on the Developer tab here, to the Code group, and then clicking on the Record Macro button. Now if you don't have the Developer tab, by default Excel doesn't install this. You have to do it yourself. Click on the Office logo button down to Excel Options, and then under the Popular Category group, go ahead and check Show Developer tab in the ribbon. Check that, click OK, it'll pull up. And then like I said, it doesn't really matter which tab I choose because they're going to be the exact same steps that I'm going to be wanting to apply to all the rest of the worksheets. So we'll do Arizona, and I'm going to go ahead and start recording. Come down here, click on the recording button, gives me a pop-up. It says, okay, what's the name you want to give your recording? Or again, I'll refer it to as a macro, and we'll just call it formatting. Now one thing about the name is that it does not like spaces. If you try to record it with the space, it's going to freak out. If you want to give it a space, cheat, go ahead and do a shift underscore, and then go ahead and continue typing. Okay, what about a shortcut key? Do you want to assign your recording that once you record everything into a shortcut key that you can quickly execute and play back, and when I go back to New York and apply all the steps to the New York worksheet? Well, I can do something, hopefully it's not assigned. I can type the letter M, that's fine. Or if you're running out of control, instead hold down the Shift key and hit the letter M on the keyboard. Notice how it updates. It adds Control, Shift plus M. So now I have to execute the shortcut keys with Control Shift M. And then where do I want to store the macro? In this workbook, in a new workbook, anytime I open up a new workbook, well, you know what? For right now, it's just going to be this workbook. Then I can give it a description. I can say fancy, and then when I'm ready to go, when I click OK, it's going to be recording everything that I do. So I click OK. It's very subtle. There's no dancing clown that comes out and says, hey, I'm recording now. The only thing that you'll notice is down on the window frame. You see how it returns from a little record button to a little square button? If you recall on your recorders, that little square means stop. So if I go ahead and hover over there, I can click stop. Now it says a macro is current recording, and if I come up here, it's also in my code group. It's currently recording as well. I can click stop. Now the thing about this is that macros do not record time. Don't think of a current recorder that if I'm speaking and then I stop for 2 minutes, or I'm sitting here in the cell for 2 minutes, that's recording all that time. No, it only records what I do, okay? So the first thing I want to do is I want to be able to come up here and click in cell A1, and let's go to the Home tab, and it's recording me actually going to the Home tab here. And I want to be able to change the size to 24, so I'll come up here and type in 24 and hit enter. There's Arizona. Click on the drop down. Let's do something more colors. Nice blue. Click OK. Click and drag, select the range. Now it's recording everything, all these steps, okay? Bold it. And then I want currency, right? So click General, down to Currency. Then Items, we can also make italics. Okay, now I'm done. So to stop this, I can just come down on the window frame bar, click on the Stop button, or go back to the Developer tab and click Stop Recording, and it's done. And now to go ahead and run the macro, I can do it one of a couple of ways. Going to come to the California worksheet. Let's apply our recorded steps or our macro to this worksheet. Now the first way we know is the shortcut key, but before we do that, let's do it in steps. Let's just say we want to take a look at our macro. So you can come up here in the code group on the developer tab, or again you can come to the view group. It doesn't really matter here. Macros, click on the drop down arrow, and let's view our macros. There it is, formatting fancy. In fact, you can click on the options button and change a shortcut key if you want. Let's change it to T. Now again, if I change it, because I didn't hold down the shift key, it's going to get rid of the shift here. So let me go ahead and hit the backspace and let me do shift T and then go ahead and click OK. But let me show you what it looks like when you click on run. Run. Boom. It applies everything. That was fast, wasn't it? So let's go to New York. Now I have 3 tabs left. I have New York, Utah, and total. Okay, so that's one way. You can go ahead and just run the macro. The other way is that we have our shortcut key, right? Control Shift T. Boom. It applies it. See how cool that is? If you got something you got to do over and over again, record it once and then save it as your shortcut and just use your shortcut key. Now the third way I'm about to show you here is actually applying your macro as a button up at the top in your quick access toolbar so you can click on the button to execute your macro. So first of all, I want to go ahead and right click anywhere up at the top on my quick access toolbar, come down to customize, then I'm going to click on the commands to choose from and let's go to macros. There it is. It's kind of ugly, the ugly icon here for a macro. Double click on it, it adds it over to the right. What I want to do is I want to select this and modify it because I don't like this ugly icon here. And in fact, the display name, so I can change the display name. Also, I can actually change the icon, maybe a happy face, and then click OK. There it is, spiffy format. Click OK, it's up at the top. Go to my Utah, click on the happy face, and you can see when I hover over it, gives me the spiffy format, and it applies it. Cool. Now here's something very important. When you record your macro and you want to save it, if I go ahead and click on the Save button, notice up at the top where it has my extension .xlsx, may not mean much to you. Of course, you want to watch my training videos. Windows Vista Level 1, we talk about extensions. Also, Excel Level 1, just a little bit when it comes to converting your workbooks. But this XLSX is not a macro workbook. I can record a macro in this workbook, but if I go ahead and save it, it's going to give me a warning that says, look, you cannot do this. If I save it and I ignore the warning, then I try to reopen this back up, my macros are going to be deleted. They're going to be gone. In other words, you can record your macro in the default workbook, the Excel XLSX, but after you're done recording, you need to save your workbook as a macro workbook. And to do that, you want to come up here, click on the Office logo, come down, click on Save As, and click on the drop-down arrow here, and what we want is an XLSM, an Excel Macro Enabled Workbook. So we have to change the extension. Macros will not save in our default workbooks when we open them. We can create them, we can record them, but when it comes to saving, make sure you click on the XLSM. Now this is going to save my exercise folder, so all I have to do is go ahead and click on Save, and it'll accept my macro XLSM. So how do I know if it's still there? I can click on my macros button, it shows fancy formatting there, close out. If I go ahead and I perform another save as up in my quick access toolbar and I save this instead of an XLSM and I just save it as a generic Excel workbook and then I go ahead and click save, well, first of all it's going to replace my workbook and I'll click yes, and then watch what happens when I close out and I try to open it back up, that XLSX. Sure, it still has my happy face, but are the macros really there? Click on the macros button. No, they're deleted, they're gone. So make sure you can record your macros in your default workbook, but be sure that you always save it as a macro enabled workbook. Okay. So I'll close out of that. I'll click on the Office logo. I'll open up my XLSM workbook, then macro enabled, click on it, and come to my View tab, click on the macros button, and there's my macro. So it's good. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.